She had one guess left. One card standing between her family and the $20,000 that would keep the bank from taking their house. Josephine Calloway pressed the buzzer with a hand that hadn't stopped shaking since she sat down and gave an answer nobody on that stage expected. Not her family, not the other team, and not Steve Harvey, who had been hosting this show for going on 12 years. Her granddaughter, sitting in the family box in a borrowed blue dress, would later say her grandmother didn't even look at the board when she said it. She looked at the ceiling like she was reading it off something only she could see. 3 seconds later, the horn sounded, and the room did something Steve Harvey had never heard it do before. It was a Thursday taping in late April, the kind of afternoon where the studio audience files in still shaking off the Georgia heat, fanning themselves with their programs before the air conditioning catches up. The Calloway family had driven up from Savannah in a 15-year-old minivan with a cracked side mirror. 4 generations packed into 2 rows outside the studio doors 2 hours before call time. There was Josephine, 79, in a lavender cardigan she'd ironed twice. Her son Reggie, who ran a small engine repair shop that hadn't turned a profit in 8 months. His wife Denise and Amara, 16, who had begged her father to let her sit in the family section instead of backstage, because she wanted to be close enough to see her grandmother's face when it happened, whatever it turned out to be. They looked on camera like every other family that walks through those doors hoping for a good time and a decent paycheck. Nobody in that green room knew that Josephine had a folder in her purse from a doctor in Savannah, dated 6 weeks earlier, that she had not shown a single member of her family. Josephine Calloway had raised 5 children in a 2-bedroom house on Wheaton Street, working nights at a linen service for 31 years so her husband's small pension would stretch. Her husband, Otis, had passed 9 years back. Since then, the house on Wheaton Street had become Reggie's house too. He'd moved his own family in after his shop started struggling, because that's just what the Calloways did for each other. In her purse that day, next to the folder she wasn't showing anyone, was a single index card, soft at the corners from 40 years of handling. It was a peach cobbler recipe, written in her late mother's looping cursive, brought north from a farm outside Statesboro in 1958. Josephine had never once made that cobbler for money or for show. She made it every single year on the anniversary of her mother's passing, and on nothing else. It was the one thing in her purse she'd tell the producer backstage with a small laugh, that she was more afraid of losing than the game itself. What none of the Calloways knew, what Josephine had decided sitting alone at her kitchen table 3 weeks earlier, she would not tell them until she absolutely had to, was that the folder from the Savannah doctor said stage 4. The oncologist had used the word months. Josephine had heard him say it, thanked him, driven home, and started making calls to producers instead of calling her children. The first 2 rounds went fine, a little shaky, the kind of nervous energy every family brings to that stage. But it was during a break, while the crew reset the board, that the floor manager, a woman named Carla who had worked this show for 6 years, noticed something. Josephine had asked, quietly, whether the show ever let a personal message go out if a family didn't make it to fast money. Carla had said sure, sometimes at the host's discretion. Josephine nodded, thanked her, and folded her hands in her lap like she was praying. Carla didn't think much of it until she caught Josephine's daughter-in-law Denise glance over mid-round with a small, worried crease between her eyebrows, the look of someone who has started to notice their mother-in-law's sleeves are a size too big for her arms lately, and hasn't said anything about it. Because some things you don't say out loud until you have to. By the 3rd round, the Calloways were down by 34 points against a family from Ohio who'd nailed 2 surveys in a row. The next question would decide who moved on to the shot at the $20,000. Name something people check twice before they leave the house. Reggie buzzed in first and said the stove. Wrong, a low answer, buried at the bottom of the board. It was the other family's turn to steal. The Ohio family's captain leaned into the mic, confident, and said wallet. Dead silence from the board. Not on it. 2 strikes. The studio audience did that thing audiences do when a family gets a second life they didn't expect. A low collective breath. Almost a gasp. Like the room itself had leaned forward an inch. It came down to the Calloways, one guess, needing the single highest answer left on the board to steal the whole round and the shot at the money. Steve turned to Josephine. Not because the rules required it, Reggie could have taken this one, but because she had put her hand up first, quiet but certain, the way she'd raised her hand in church her whole life when she had something worth saying. "Grandma wants it," Reggie said, stepping back. Amara in the family box grabbed her mother's arm so hard Denise would find the marks later. Here is the part almost nobody watching at home would catch, but 3 of the people on that stage never forgot it. As Josephine stepped up to the podium, her legs went. Not dramatically, just a half-second buckle, caught by the podium's edge, gone as fast as it came. Steve reached out on instinct and steadied her elbow. "You all right?" he asked her, off mic, just between the 2 of them. And Josephine, this woman who hadn't told her own son what the folder said, looked up at Steve Harvey, a stranger to her 12 minutes earlier, and said 4 words nobody but him heard, "I'm running out of time." Steve didn't understand it yet. He thought she meant the clock on the board. He'd find out different in about 90 seconds. He squeezed her elbow once, said then let's not waste it, and stepped back to let her play. The board asked one more time, name something people check twice before they leave the house. Josephine closed her eyes for exactly 1 second. Then she said it. Not the stove, not the wallet, not the lock on the door. She said that they told the people they love that they love them. For a full 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the number 41 lit up on the board, the single highest answer. The one every other family had missed, because it wasn't the kind of answer you give when you're playing a game show. It was the kind of answer you give when you know something about your own time that the room doesn't. The horn went off. The Calloways had won the round and the shot at fast money. But the studio wasn't cheering yet, because in that same beat, Steve Harvey had gone still. He looked at Josephine for a long moment, then quietly set his card down on the podium and pressed his hand flat against his chest. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dropping out of host mode entirely. "Did you just tell this whole room something you haven't told your own family?" Josephine's eyes filled. She nodded once, and that's when Denise in the family box understood the sleeves, the folder Josephine had let slip out of her purse backstage without noticing, the way she'd hugged each of her grandchildren a little longer than usual that morning. Reggie's face changed in real time, the way a man's face changes when a fear he didn't have words for finally gets one. Steve set down his mic, not dropped, not thrown, just laid it gently on the podium in front of him. A gesture that would end up clipped and replayed more than the win itself, and walked around to where Josephine stood. He didn't say anything scripted. He put his arms around her, right there in front of 8 cameras, and let her cry into his shoulder while her family came off the risers to reach her. When he finally spoke to the room, his voice was rough. "I have stood on this stage a long time," he said, "and I have watched a lot of families win a lot of money. But I don't think I've ever watched somebody spend their last good breath telling a room full of strangers what she should have been telling her own children." He turned to Reggie, to Amara, to Denise. "Go home tonight and say it. Don't wait for a game show to make you brave enough." Amara made it to her grandmother first, still in that borrowed blue dress, and pressed the peach cobbler recipe card. Pulled straight from Josephine's purse where it had fallen open on the floor, back into her hand. "You're going to teach me this," Amara said. "Properly, not on a card." Josephine laughed through the tears and told her granddaughter, for the first time out loud in front of everyone, exactly what the folder said. The Calloways didn't run the table on fast money. They didn't need to. The $20,000 from the round alone paid off what the bank was threatening to take, with enough left to get Josephine into a treatment trial 2 counties over that her local doctor hadn't mentioned. She's 6 months out from that Thursday taping now. Amara has made the peach cobbler 4 times, twice under her grandmother's direct supervision, and it still isn't quite right, which Josephine says is exactly how it's supposed to go for a few more years yet. Steve Harvey still has that mic on a shelf in his dressing room, the one he set down that day, not the one he's used since. Somebody asked him once why he kept it. He said some rooms need you to be a host, and some rooms need you to just be a person standing in it. He said that Thursday in late April was the second kind. If there's one family in your life you haven't said it to lately, say it tonight. Don't wait for a stage to make you brave. And if this one got you, you know where the subscribe button is. Hit it, so you don't miss whoever's story is next.